and welcome everyone to today's Synergist product demo, VelocityEHS Ergonomics, AI powered to predict and prevent musculoskeletal disorders. I'm Ed Rakowski, editor of the Synergist, the magazine of AIHA. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today, and especially VelocityEHS for sponsoring this webinar. Today's product demo is scheduled for 30 minutes. Our speaker is Jacqueline Faraci. As a senior solutions consultant for VelocityEHS, Jacqueline provides technical and scientific expertise to support the sales and product teams, helping organizations worldwide enhance their EHS and ESG processes. Jacqueline completed Bachelor of Science and Master of Science degrees in Human Kinetics at the University of Windsor. She's currently a certified professional ergonomist, as well as a certified safety professional. Jacqueline, welcome. The presentation is all yours.
Perfect, thank you. And you know what, with the bit of time that we have today, I'm just going to jump right in and share my screen. Okay, just making sure, Ed, you can see my screen okay?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, thanks. We'll just jump right in. So this is the main page of the industrial ergonomics software. So a couple of housekeeping items and things I like to address just as we're jumping into the software here. You can see Learn, Do, Manage tabs. This is the layout of the system, and this is a cloud-based solution, but this is not just an ergonomics assessment tool alone. It's a foundational process for ergonomics. So that includes comprehensive training, a detailed improvement process, and management section on the right that includes detailed reporting. The reason this is not just an assessment tool is because there's no research today that says an ergonomics assessment tool alone is enough to reduce risk in an organization. There just isn't. Even if you think of some of your maybe high ergonomics risk jobs in any of the environments that you're in order to improve those jobs or to see risk reduction, we need to quantify it. So we need to know where the ergonomics risk is that's present. We need to identify root causes. We need to come up with the right controls or the right improvements that work for that environment. Maybe we need to put together a business case if this requires capital, and we need to get the right teams involved. All of those steps need to happen in order for us to see risk reduction over time. So this Do tab here, this is a really detailed improvement process that we're going to walk through, and that needs to be included in order for us to see risk reduction. This learning section on the far left here, this is training. So the idea behind this system is that you do not need to be an expert to use these tools. Personally, I've trained many people who are new to safety or new to ergonomics how to use these assessment tools. The goal is scalability. So you don't need to be an expert in order to have expert results. So we'll go through some of the training in a bit more detail as well. And the manage section on the far right, that's reporting. Depending on your business, depending on the type of industry that you're in and the KPIs that are important to your leadership teams, you'll probably look at the management section a little bit differently depending on what you need. But I like to say that the management section helps you communicate your value, the value of this investment, and your ergonomics time to your leadership teams. So you could very easily print out, export a risk map to show your leadership teams, hey, this is exactly what I've been doing for 2025 for ergonomics. This is the training that we've done with these groups and this team. Here's the report of who's completed that. And this is our risk reduction over time after we've been utilizing this for X number of years at a site. This helps you communicate the value of what you're doing and ensuring that what you're doing for ergonomics is working. So these three tabs are foundationally part of managing ergonomics from start to finish. And we work with customers globally in a wide variety of different industries. So just a little bit about my background as well. Ed gave a really nice intro and took that from my bio. But before I was in the role I'm at now with Velocity, I spent years doing consulting. So I was helping customers actually implement this ergonomics system. I was helping them identify the right metrics, KPIs, doing training, consulting, whether that was small single-site organizations or large global ones. So I'm probably going to use industry-specific examples as we walk through this, and I'll talk about some of the ways I've seen this leveraged really well with customers and some things that have worked pretty great. So we'll start with the learning section and work our way over. But the main idea behind this learn in the training section, again, think sustainability. We understand that a lot of the people managing ergonomics at the site level, at the R&D level, at the facility level, for example, often don't have just ergonomics as their sole role and job. They're managing 6 other components of safety, and they're now tasked with managing ergonomics. So not everyone's an expert. The idea here is that we can assign any of these e-learning and training courses to anyone that you see fit to be able to do these assessments. So there's about 4 hours of content in here, but you don't need to assign somebody 4 hours of ergonomics training by any means. You could pick and choose who's best suited for what trainings and assign that to them, with the idea being, you know what, this supervisor is new to this environment and I want them to be able to do some of these ergonomics assessments. I'm going to assign them the following modules. So if I scroll to the very bottom here, under where it says supplemental courses, this awareness course here is 15 minutes long and it's super general. This talks more about what ergonomics is, why we should care about it, and some of the risk factors we see in physical work. So like those awkward postures, those high forces. And this is actually an excellent tool to train operators with. So one really interesting statistic, actually at AEC, the Applied Ergonomics Conference this year, I sat in a session where somebody talked about a large analysis that had been done with 1,000 operators that were out working on plant floors. And less than 1% of those operators knew that poor ergonomics could lead to injury. So that means that when we roll out a program like this, and that was a pretty crazy statistic for me to hear, that less than 1% of those operators knew that poor ergonomics could lead to an injury. This is really important before we roll out and create a foundation for an ergonomics program. The people that we're going to be working really closely with, the operators, need to understand the why behind those changes and the why behind this process. So if you don't already have something created for this, this is a really great place to start, just with that ergonomics awareness training for the operators. I've seen people use this as part of a hiring package, part of an annual safety training, and then this could be your first identified metric for ergonomics that you could show to your leaders. We started by identifying that these 2 departments at our site have the highest ergonomics issues, so we did a training with these operators, and that's how we're getting started. So those are just some ways that you could leverage the training that I've seen work really well. But the main point, again, is to train your people how to use these tools so that if you ever have employee turnover one day, that's common, it happens. And let's say we have new ergonomics administrators coming in who are tasked with managing this, they could watch these trainings and be able to run reports and do assessments. That's the main purpose. So now I want to jump into the do tab. So this is the risk assessment. So in this section here, the location bar on the left, this is just our demo site. This is a demo environment, but most customers like to organize their locations or create a hierarchy that's organized by location. We just want to do this in a way that mirrors how you intend to do reporting. So what's the language that we speak to our leaders in? Do we communicate ergonomics risk or our risk map at the site level? Do we want to be able to communicate and say, this is the risk map at the department level? Or maybe we want to be even more granular and say, this is all of the ergonomics risk, the subtasks within one job. We could do all types of organizing that way, but typically organizations do it a bit differently. So let's say for the sake of this demonstration, what you're seeing here, this list, let's say this is a list of job assessments for one site. So I'm looking at a list of 10 jobs here at one site that have been completed. So I could see, if I look on the right, I could see who's completed the assessment, the days they've completed it, and actually using some filtering options. What I've done is I've organized them from highest risk to lowest risk. So what I'm looking at here is this baseline column, and I'm looking at the red 47 all the way down. So I know that most people probably listening to this conversation probably have a good idea of what a risk map is and how to use it. So this might be a bit redundant, but I usually like to tell people that we've now organized this from high risk to lowest risk. That doesn't necessarily mean when we see a red job, we have to pull the fire alarm. That's not what this means. It's just saying that we should probably organize internal resources to improve jobs. Let's improve the highest scoring red jobs first to be proactive and prevent future injuries. This just tells me the areas of focus and where I should prioritize my time with projects and collaborate with other safety teams or let's say daily process teams. So now we'll jump into a job assessment. So one thing I'll call out, the example we're going to go through, this is a 3D motion capture risk assessment. So that means I'm taking a video of someone doing something difficult and using motion capture and machine learning, the system's going to provide me with a comprehensive ergonomics risk score. This is done by taking a video on my phone, I can log into the site the same way that I log into a browser on my phone. If I'm using an iPhone or I'm using an Android, I can just open up the browser. Not gonna lie, I don't know the default browser for an Android, but I know that for an iPhone, you can open Safari, log into your site link, and process your video right through here. And it's gonna give me a comprehensive risk score in a few minutes. So I'll play this video and I'll talk a little bit more about it and how to use it. But the other thing I'll mention is that this tool has been used in so many physical working environments. I've personally used it in fieldwork environments where I was filming someone working at high heights from the ground. It's been used in construction, unique types of manufacturing. This is just one example of how you could apply it. So this would be like our baseline, and think of these tabs here as the next steps in your improvement process. So first we'll start with a baseline. Okay, so this is an example of my process video. What I mean by that, I took a video of someone doing something difficult and uploaded it to the site. And in about 5 minutes, it gave me this comprehensive video. So what you can see on the left is a skeleton following the operator nice and closely. This person's not wearing sensors or wearables. I'm just taking a video of them doing the work. And what you see on the right, this icon here, that's to tell you that this is a 3D processed assessment. So I won't dive too deep into the science, but what you need to know about that is previously we were using a 2-dimensional model to assess ergonomics risk, and now we've upgraded to a 3-dimensional model. We did it for a few reasons, mostly from customer feedback. Upgrading from 2D to 3D allowed us to assess the hands and wrists using motion capture. Before we needed to do that manually. Reason for that is because those hand and wrist movements are so fast, rapid, and awkward that the safest way or the most accurate way to assess them with a 2-dimensional model was to do it manually. But we got a big push from our customers saying, we have a lot of non-experts using this tool, so it needs to have less manual entry. So that's why we upgraded. So that means that with this model, the motion capture is assessing the entire body as well as the hands and wrists. Some of the other things a 3D model that does compared to a 2-dimensional is it accounts for things like twisting and sideways bending, and something called occluded body segments. So occluded body segments means that something goes missing. Maybe it goes missing behind a desk, behind a piece of equipment, or it goes hidden for a few seconds. 2-dimensional models, they can't assess what they can't see, but 3D models can using predictive analytics. So what that means is at times that this operator's right elbow and right arm go missing, you'll notice that this icon on the right is showing the entire body at all times because it uses predictive analytics to tell me what's going on with those body segments when they're hidden. And the margin of error is very low. It's very accurate predictive analytics. So this is our latest assessment tool and latest version, and the processing times for videos are even faster. So the idea behind going from 2D to 3D was just to make this even easier for people to use and for people to train non-experts to use. So once I take my video, you see all these outputs here. It's a lot of information. I've got my video, I've got this advanced tool priority score number. That's the number we saw from the risk map earlier. This is a number that ranges from 0 to 100. So the idea behind this as well, this appears to be scoring a 32 out of 100. It's in that high priority category. If you took 2 other videos, let's say one scored a 10 and one scored a 25. That's just saying of 10, 25, and this job here that scored 32, I should probably prioritize the 32 and improve this job before I work on the other 2. It's just helping me be a little bit more proactive and allocate my time better. This skeleton on the right here tells me that this was a full body assessment and shows me where the risk is being distributed. And this chart below gives me insight based on those ergonomics risk factors that we account for. So things like forces, postures, duration, and frequency. The red boxes tell me what's causing some of my red score in this advanced tool priority score number here. So the reason you're given so much information in as little as a few minutes here is because we want teams to spend their valuable time identifying what to do when they have a high risk job, not spending hours to complete an assessment to say, yep, this job appears to be high risk. I knew it was high risk. I need to spend time coming up with a solution that works for this environment. That's what I need to be doing. So that's the idea behind the motion capture. And the other benefit is just accuracy and standardization and reducing that human error or subjectivity component. So just to give you a personal example, when I finished school and I had a master's in biomechanics and physiology, and I was used to doing paper-based assessments. If I went out on the floor and when I would do an assessment with a partner, sometimes we'd both use a paper-based assessment, but if someone had a little bit more task knowledge of the job or a bit more knowledge of the assessment tool we were using, sometimes we got to the end and had different scores. And we'd say, no, this is this type of forward trunk bend or this type of wrist extension. So the benefit of motion capture is if one day you decided to train 5 supervisors on how to use this tool, and they all had varying levels of EHS or ergonomics knowledge, if they took the same video, they'd have the same exact wrist score. So this removes that subjectivity and human error. Our benchmarking says it's almost 3 times more accurate than doing an assessment on paper. That's a person doing this assessment. So this section here where it says forces, I just want to call this out just to be open and transparent here. You need to add forces manually. That's the only thing you need to do manually. Reason for that is where we're at with research today. I can't take a video of someone and have it predict the weight of the object that person's carrying. So we might get to that point in the future, but today we need to do this manually. So this is where I can add any forces associated with my work, whether that's lifting, carrying, pushing, pulling, even things like pinch gripping. Those are easy forces to forget about because they appear small, but those are absolutely examples of high forces. So I can account for any of the types of forces in my job, and that's going to influence my score and make any changes that are required. So that's how we get our risk assessment. Think of these tabs here as, okay, I have a high risk job, now what? Now what do I do with this? So I can use this direct causes section. This is the same video we just took a look at. And what this chart is, this is the length of time of my video, and you see different peak levels. That's the risk level in the video. So that would mean that the higher peaks, I'll click on the highest one here, that's going to take me to a timestamp, the 13-second mark of the most difficult part of the job. This is an excellent way to start brainstorming, to say, maybe I sit with a group, maybe someone from engineering, someone from maintenance, quality, EHS, and we say, we know this job's a problem. Let's put the video on the screen here and click through. Where are the highest risk parts of the job? This is a great way to start that brainstorm. And the second section we have here, causes by body region. The tool and the machine learning actually organizes this for me. So you can see all these body segments on the left are organized by the tool. So it's telling me the right hand, the left hand, right shoulder, and right elbow tend to be higher priority for this assessment. So I should do a root cause analysis on those body segments. So just as an example, let's go with the right elbow. We knew it was high risk. So the motion capture told me there's some high risk on the right elbow due to awkward posture. It's telling me as the video taker, I should probably identify why that is. So using these drop-down menus, I could do a root cause analysis. We manage all of these drop-down menus. All you would have to do is just select the problems you see. So, okay, from the video, I noticed some awkward postures on the right elbow. And I said part of the reason for that is because parts are presented or delivered too high. I noticed that as that person in that packaging environment, what they're doing is they're filling envelopes to prepare them for outgoing shipping. I noticed at times I saw some color changes when they were reaching above to grab some package for the envelopes. The bottom arrow here is like the why. So why are parts too high? In this case, I said it's because the shelf's too high. I've got the ability to add a description here if I need to. And once I press save, it's going to give me very specific suggested controls for that right elbow and the awkward postures. So it looks like I've got 6 ideas here. Can I block that shelf from use? Can I lower it? Provide a portable stool or stairs? I've got 3 other ideas, or I could do this manually. The idea behind this is meant to be a brainstorm tool so that I could sit with a group and say, this one or these 2 work best for our environment. They work best for our budget, our fiscal year, or our resources, or maybe space constraints. So you pick the one that works best for you and best for your industry. But this is all very specific to awkward postures on the right elbow. If I was looking at high forces on the back or awkward neck postures, I'd have a very different list of problems and solutions populate. So they're incredibly specific to that body segment and the risk factor associated. So that's how the direct cause section works. Fun fact, that section used to be completely blank. So we used to go on site and teach people how to identify problems manually. But as you can imagine, when we worked with teams that were new to ergonomics, they would say, I have no idea what the right improvement is or the right control. I need help with that. So that's why we tried to automate this, and we spent a lot of development time because we know teams need the most support in this area. You could probably tell me, even without a comprehensive assessment, where your problems are, but you don't know the best ways to fix them. So the solution gives you automated recommendations for that reason. These next tabs here, you see improvements on the left, projected follow-up. Think of these as my business case. So not every job assessment that you're thinking of now as the wheels are turning a bit, not every single task in your environment necessarily requires a job assessment from baseline all the way to follow-up. That's not what this means. But maybe you start by creating your risk map. Maybe you have about 10 jobs like we did on that previous screen, and maybe 5 of those jobs appear red or high risk. These 3 tabs help you escalate those red jobs. So these are here as additional resources when you need them. I've got the ability inside this improvements tab to do a return on investment calculation, add more details to my improvement type, assign it to somebody, add a lot of comprehensive details. And then this projected tab personally is probably my favorite to talk about. This is where I could test the effectiveness of an improvement before I make a change. So I could use this as my business case to justify why something could change and speak to my leaders in their language. So this looks very similar to your baseline screen. That's because it is. But let's say I want to lower the shelf height in that previous job we looked at. So we saw some awkward postures. Maybe I need to lower the height of the highest part of that shelf. What I could do is mark out that new height with tape, and then I could take a new video of the operator working at that simulated height, and the system would give me a 1-page printout that says, okay, my baseline's where I'm at, but my projected's where I'd like to be. So if I make change X, I could reduce the overall risk at the job by 16%, for example, lower the risk from high to moderate. And this is the team effort I need to do that. This is who's responsible, cost, details, the days I want to make the change. This is my business case. And this helps me tell my leadership, I don't want this job to change because I don't like it, but the data is telling us that this should change. And if we change it, this is the success we will see. So that's what the projected tab helps you do. And this follow-up tab here, this just reinforces the importance of continuous improvement. So once I make a change to a job, I want to take a new video to make sure that I didn't introduce any new problems, that I actually solved the issue I was trying to solve, and the operator knows how to work in the new environment. So in a really similar way, I take a new video of the process. So that way I've got this 1-page printout that says, my baseline's where I started and follow-up is now where we're at. So after our intervention, let's say we made a couple additional changes, we were able to reduce the overall risk at the job by 34%. And this was all our team effort. This was who participated. This is what we did for the last 3 months behind the scenes. I've seen people print this out, put it out on the floor to thank operators for their participation, to say, hey, we hear you and thanks for participating. And this was everything we were able to do with your support. But also just to get people excited about your new initiative. And let's say you make a change from baseline all the way to follow-up. If you're thinking of a really high-risk job now, you make a change from start to finish, and let's say it was super well received. You could then copy over that job assessment to another department or even to another site that you know could benefit from that same process change. They could then purchase from your same vendors, follow your same process, your same workflow. And that's a really great way to streamline processes, but also maximize your ROI. So that was the Do tab. I'm going to pop into the Manage super quickly. We're not going to spend too much time in here, but I just want to show you a risk map. So we looked initially at that risk map on the main page. This here below is that same risk map we looked at earlier with those 10 jobs at that one site. This is just in a format that I can customize and I can export. So maybe I need to know who did this job assessment, when, what shift it was on. I can customize this chart and then export it into an Excel file, and I can feed this through other internal systems to give anybody else visibility who needs to see. So that's just one out of the box report people usually like to see, but there's a ton of others. And for the sake of time, I want to make sure we have time for questions. I'll give us a bit of a pause. We walked through the learning section, talked about some ways you could leverage training and also use it for operators. This tool is designed for anyone to use. The Do tab, where we can create our risk map, prioritize where we should focus our time and efforts, but also create business case resources if we need to. And the Manage section looks at reporting. So that's the comprehensive ergonomics process that we talked through today. And thanks for listening. And I want to make sure we've got some time for questions.
Hey, thanks, Jacqueline. Looks like we have a little less than 5 minutes for questions. Just a reminder, if you'd like to ask a question, please send it through the chat window. And the first one that's come in, and Jacqueline, you talked about this a little bit earlier in the presentation, but why 3D assessments versus 2D assessments?
Yeah, great question. They're more accurate. They're more accurate, and they're more accurate because they provide you with more data. So previously with two-dimensional models, think of those tools. A two-dimensional model can't assess what it can't see. So that means when somebody's going missing behind equipment, we can't provide outputs for any of that data. It can't account for twisting, sideways bending, and most two-dimensional models can't actually assess the hands and wrists. You'll need to do that manually. So why 3D? You can get results faster and they're more accurate. So that way, when you're creating an intervention plan, you could really trust your outcomes from the assessment. So 3D is better because they're more accurate.
Great, thanks. And the next question is, this all seems well detailed and comprehensive. How do I get started?
Yeah, good question. There's a lot of information there in that detailed workflow for ergonomics. A really great place to start is by identifying who you want to be involved in this initiative and doing some training. So we could assign operators some of that training to make them aware of this initiative, maybe a few supervisors, a few key safety stakeholders. Those are great ways to get started. And then by creating a risk map, taking some videos, getting an understanding of where the challenges are in the area, and then using that to create plans to say, if these are our high risk areas, let's focus on some low hanging fruit solutions for these jobs next year.
Okay, great. Those are the questions we have right now. Jacqueline, is there anything? Oh, I'm sorry, one just came in from Kristen. And the question is, have you seen this software used in healthcare?
Yeah, I have. One unique example we had, I was part of an implementation for a hospital group in Canada, actually, where they used this for a lot of their services. So cleaning, clerk, kitchen services. And one of the big challenges they had was patient handling. So we got creative with how we used this. What we would do is we would take videos of somebody moving pillows, for example, add some privacy features, and we were able to use it successfully in that environment. So yeah, I've seen it used in healthcare.
Great. Well, okay, one more. I think we can squeeze this in from
Yeah,
Ahmed. Is there a specific reference slash standards applied? Um, does it
yeah,
differentiate between male and female?
yeah. Yep, great question. I could probably answer those both together. So the specific reference and standards applied, this is based on the most current ergonomics research and anthropometric data. So we could also follow up and provide you some more detailed resources, but this is a system that Velocity EHS built. So this algorithm isn't other places on the market. So we built this with current ergonomics research and anthropometric data, which means it was designed to be really inclusive. So we fed this machine learning model with a lot of data. So anthropometric data is joint angles, reach distances from that very small 5th percentile female all the way up to the 95th percentile male. So that means that's about 95% of workers. So if you took a video of someone, whether they're male or female, doing the exact same job, it could safely assess them from taking one video. The only times I recommend maybe taking two is, let's say somebody's size discrepancies are so large that they do the task different. Maybe someone much shorter needs to bend a certain way or maneuver and grab parts a certain way. That's when I would take a different video. But aside from that, the tool's based on most current research, which means that the forces or the factors that we know contribute to injury today are force, posture, duration, and frequency. And the most current research says that they don't all contribute the same amount. So the amount that they contribute to injury, force being the greatest, that means it's considered most heavily in the tool. So those are some of the ways that we use like current standards, science, and research to dictate the outcomes of our model, but it also does account for the extremes in the environment, so males and females.
Okay, thanks, Jacqueline. And that's a perfect time to stop. It's 2:30. Um, my thanks to Jacqueline Faraci for her presentation, to Velocity EHS for sponsoring today's product demo, and to all of our participants. Please check aiha.webvent.tv for announcements of upcoming Synergist webinars, and have a great day.